In this presentation, I'm going to share how I scored a 9.0 in the listening section of IELTS Academic. As you might already know, I scored 9.0 in listening both times I took the exam. I used to get 8.0 or 8.5 on my practice tests and mock exams, but then I figured out how to change my preparation process, and I was able to get a 9.0 right away. The main thing you need to understand is that listening is not a test of understanding. The listening section tests your ability to stay oriented while listening to spoken English. It tests your control and discipline, and your recovery when you miss an answer or make a mistake. You need to control your attention, your timing, your decisions. That means your biggest enemies are lack of control and lack of strategy. The key skill here is controlling what you pay attention to and when you pay attention to it. You need selective attention, not maximum attention. If you try to understand every sentence, you will always fall behind because the tasks are not designed for deep processing. They are designed for fast recognition of small details that matter at the exact moment they appear. In my previous video about reading, I talked about question literacy. And now in listening, I want to explain what audio literacy means. It is the crucial skill of knowing how to listen for signals, not for meaning. IELTS uses consistent signal patterns for when an answer is coming, when it is being corrected, when the speaker is about to spell something, or when a number is about to appear, or when the topic is about to shift. For example, corrections are one of the biggest score killers. A speaker will say a number, then immediately revise it, or they will say a date, then soften it, or they will mention a place, then specify a different place. Students write the first version because they feel relieved they caught something, and then they stop listening. My rule was simple. I do not commit to an answer until I hear a closure signal. Closure signals sound like, that could be fine, let's go with, I will put down, I will book, I will choose, that's all, or a shift to the next detail. So train your ear to wait for a closure. This way you stop getting tricked by the first draft of information. Another pattern is what I call pre-answer packaging or categorizing. So before the answer, IELTS often uses a packaging phrase that tells you the format of the answer. It can sound like, it's cold, the main reason is, you will need, the cost is, it is located, it's on, or the best option is. Those phrases are a warning. They tell you exactly what to expect, and if your brain knows what's coming, you catch it faster. If you don't know what to expect, you are still processing the previous sentence when the answer has already passed. So that's why I never practiced listening passively. I practiced it like a reaction sport. I trained the timing of my focus. I would replay short clips and ask myself one question. At what exact word did I know an answer was coming? Not what was the answer, but what was the trigger. That is how you build predictability and practice mindfully. The second pillar of my 9.0 system was using the pre-listening time effectively. I treated it as the highest value time in the whole test. So once the audio starts, you're mostly reacting. But before it starts, you can build a plan. My plan was to make a narrow prediction. I knew I didn't have to read everything, so I scanned for answer constraints. Constraints are the details that limit the possibilities. A blank is not just a blank, it has a grammar shape and a semantic category. So you ask yourself, is it a noun or a verb? Is it plural? Could it be a measurement? Is it a person's name? Is it a place? Is it a reason? Is it a type of problem? Is it a label from a list? Learning to identify constraints stops you from writing nonsense, and it also helps you hesitate less when you hear something that fits. I also train myself to notice where IELTS is likely to place distractors. In many sections, especially sections 2 and 3, the recording gives you a short narrative, then details, then a small explanation, and then the key detail. If you write too early, you will be wrong. So I learned to wait for the moment the speaker becomes specific. The sound of specificity is different. It shifts from general to exact. General sounds like there are several, a lot of, you can, or many people. Specific sounds like on the left, next to, at 10:30, room B12, 25, or only on Tuesdays. So I train my brain to respect specifics because answers live inside specificity. I highly recommend making sure your handwriting and layout are clean and clear. A lot of people underestimate this, but if your writing is slow or messy, it might affect your result. When you do practice tests, train yourself to write cleanly, leave small spaces, and avoid crossing out mistakes too aggressively. If you make a mistake when writing your final answer, you can use a clean, single-line strike-through and move on. Also, don't get hung up on a single mistake. Don't lose time and focus because of one missed question. IELTS punishes emotional reactions. If you miss one blank and freeze, you might miss the next 3 and tank your score. Remember that practice makes progress, so take your practice tests mindfully. Learn to recover after a missed question and move on quickly and cleanly. And learn to manage your internal audio too. Many students replay a sentence in their head after they hear it, trying to decode it again. That inner replay blocks your ability to hear the next sentence. So listening becomes 2 audios, the real audio and your mental audio, and you can only handle one. So I train myself to accept partial understanding and keep my attention on the live sound. I know that this kind of training can feel uncomfortable at first because it feels like you're being careless, but it builds the discipline and control you need for a 9.0. Now let me talk about sections 3 and 4 because that is where band 9 is really earned. Section 3 is an academic discussion with opinions, and section 4 is a lecture-style monologue with dense information. For section 3, the trap is speaker tracking. Students understand the conversation but lose track of who said what, and they choose an option that is true but not linked to the correct person or stance. So I train myself to track stance changes, not content. Stance words include I think, I suppose, I'm not sure, I'd argue, actually, the advantage, the drawback, and it depends. The answer often follows a stance shift. If you catch the shift, you catch the answer. For section 4, I realized the importance of building my own internal paragraph map. Even though you don't see the text, the lecture still has structure. It introduces a topic, it gives background, it explains a mechanism, then gives an example, mentions a study, and then summarizes. I train myself to hear those structural moves. First of all, let's consider, then for example, in particular, research suggests, as a result, and in conclusion. When you hear structure, you stop feeling lost and you stop missing answers because you know whether you are in definition mode, example mode, or result mode. The final pillar is mistake analysis that is specific to listening. I forced myself to label every error I made with a category because only categories can be fixed. I used categories like these: a timing error, a closure error, a constraint error, a distraction error, a speaker tracking error, a spelling or number decoding error. Then I asked one more question. What is the smallest training unit that fixes this? If it's timing, I need transition drills. If it's closure, I need correction training. If it's constraints, I need grammar shape training. If it's spelling, I need letter decoding drills. If it's distraction, I need selective attention training. Alright, thank you for watching. I hope this gave you a different, more practical way to think about IELTS listening. Make sure to check out my Notion page and my coffee shop. I offer individual consultations and tutoring services, so if you'd like to talk with me directly and ask specific questions about your exam prep, you can always book a session through my coffee shop. I also have a Telegram channel where I post updates, share resources, and answer questions.